People today are experiencing stress at record high levels. Let's learn a little bit about stress and the brain. I suppose everyone knows what stress feels like, that state of mental or emotional strain, having difficulties that cause worry or emotional tension. But psychologists usually define stress as the brain's response to demands. Stress can be either good or bad. Good stress, or what psychologists refer to as eustress, is the type of stress we feel when we are excited. There's no threat or fear. We feel this type of stress when we ride a roller coaster or compete for something or go on a first date. It keeps us feeling alive and excited about life. To experience good stress, you should choose activities and set goals that make you feel happy and excited. But stress is often bad. Bad stress can be either chronic or acute. Acute means short term. It comes from sudden stressors that need a response. Acute stress doesn't take a heavy toll if we find ways to relax quickly. Chronic stress is the problem. This is a type of bad stress that occurs when we repeatedly face stressors that take a heavy toll and feel inescapable. Because our bodies aren't designed for chronic stress, we can face physical and emotional health effects from chronic stress. Sometimes it is possible to change bad stress into good stress to make a situation seem exciting. This can be done by changing your view of the situation. You see, your body reacts strongly to perceived threats. If you don't perceive something as a threat, then there's no stress response. If you perceive something as a challenge instead of as a threat, then the fear you would normally experience may turn into excitement or anticipation. You can help to make this shift in your perception by, number one, focusing on the resources that you have to meet the challenge. Number two, see the potential benefits of a situation. Three, remind yourself of the strengths that you have. And four, take a positive problem-solving approach. As you practice seeing threats more as challenges, it will become more automatic and it will become easier for you to change sometimes bad stress into good stress. Of course, stressors can come from many, many places. Here are some that people quite often report as the causes of stress in their life: money problems, work, family relationships, health problems, health care, school, relationships, politics, mass shootings in our society, loneliness, depression, anxiety, and so on. So there are many, many sources of stress. Everybody experiences stress, but research shows that some people are more likely to experience chronic stress than other people. Those more likely to experience the effects of stress are women rather than men, minorities, young people, parents, students, people who live in poverty, those who suffer from discrimination. Those are the groups that are more likely to suffer from chronic stress, but of course, it can affect anybody. Your body has a built-in response system for dealing with stress demands on your brain. And this is usually called the fight or flight response, although that's a terrible name for it, but that's what we call it. The idea that when you're in a threatening, dangerous situation, that your body gets prepared to fight back or to run away, fight or flight. The major parts of the fight or flight response in our body are called the Hpa Axis, and this is a group, a system of brain and body parts that use hormones. Hormones are chemicals that go through your bloodstream. That use hormones to prepare your body for a fight or flight response. The Hpa Axis, HPA stands for three different parts of your brain and body: H, the hypothalamus; P, the pituitary gland; and A, the adrenal glands in your gut. When we perceive a threat or danger, our hypothalamus releases a hormone called CRH, which makes our heart beat faster and changes our body physiologically. but it also sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which then releases a hormone called ACTH, which affects our body, but also sends a signal to the adrenal glands to release various hormones, including a hormone called cortisol, which increases our blood pressure and also sends a signal to the hypothalamus to stop releasing CRH. This is the Hpa axis. The Hpa axis gets the most attention when it comes to fight or flight response. However, when we have stress, there are many other parts of the brain that are important. For example, how does the Hpa axis get its information? Well, this is through the thalamus. The thalamus is the relay center in the brain that relays information. So when we have a perceived threat or danger, that information goes to the thalamus, which then shares that information with the limbic system. The limbic system is a group of brain parts that are below the cerebrum in the non-thinking instinctual part of the brain. And that includes the amygdala, which controls our emotional responses to things. So amygdala is very important for stress response. And also the hippocampus, which is the most sensitive area to stress. This is the part of our brain that changes with reactions to things. It's the learning and memory part of the brain. So amygdala and hippocampus, parts of the limbic system, are very important when it comes to stress. And then finally, let me mention the prefrontal cortex. This is part of the thinking brain. This is the part of our brain that has consciousness, that has awareness, that does our thinking, that remembers our past experiences. So our prefrontal cortex is important because it can actually perceive threat as something of a challenge rather than as a danger, and we can actually use thinking to reduce our reaction to stress. Now, back to the Hpa axis. It turns out that the end result of our reaction to stress is the release of hormones into our bloodstream from the adrenal glands. And this means particularly the hormone called cortisol. And cortisol can cause significant problems if it's there all the time, that if you're constantly under stress, cortisol in the short term helps your body, but in the long term, cortisol damages your brain and your body. Your body has been designed through millions of years of evolution to respond to threatful, dangerous situations with the hormone cortisol. So in moderation, in small amounts, in short bursts, cortisol is perfectly normal and healthy. It will restore balance to your body after a stressful event. It helps regulate blood sugar levels, and it helps the hippocampus, the learning and memory center of your brain. However, your body is not designed to deal with constant chronic exposure to cortisol. So when we have constant unending stress, this leads to fatigue and weight gain and sleep disturbances and reduced sociability and an overall negative mood. Unending stress, constant stress, leads to overloads of cortisol, the hormone in your bloodstream, which affects many different parts of your body, and it affects your emotions so that you become moody and irritable and depressed and anxious. It also suppresses your immune system and increases your blood pressure. These things can be very harmful to you. Stress, when it is constant, is very harmful to the body, mostly because of overload of cortisol, which affects our body in many, many ways, which is harmful. This is why we need stress reduction. Now, it turns out that cortisol also affects the brain, not just the other parts of the body. So cortisol in high levels can disrupt synapses. It can kill brain cells. It can even reduce the size of the brain. And chronic stress has been shown to shrink the prefrontal cortex, the very important part of our brain responsible for learning and memory and thinking and so on. Another really bad thing about constant stress is that it has a domino effect, that when you have sort of constant cortisol, this can increase the size of the amygdala, which makes the brain more receptive then to danger, to threats. And also, cortisol strengthens the pathways, makes them sort of hardwired between the hippocampus and the amygdala. And this means your brain is more easily ready for fight or flight, that you're predisposed to be in a constant state of anxiety and nervousness because of the stress. I'm sure you're getting the idea that chronic stress is harmful to your brain and your body, but here are a few more areas that scientists have discovered are affected by stress. As we mentioned, damage to the hippocampus, which means learning and memory problems, behavioral, cognitive, and mood disorders, an impaired immune system, which means subject to more illnesses, damage to the cardiovascular system, the heart, for example, and damage to the normal functioning of the intestinal tract. Now, the news isn't all bad. It turns out we have a process called neuroplasticity. This means that brains can change, and this is especially true for young people. So brains that are severely damaged from constant stress can recover because brains are neuroplastic. That is, they can change with experience. Well, what can we do if we have a lot of stress in our life? Okay, first, try to establish some control over your situation. Make stress predictable. Having a routine is a good idea for development and for health. Predictability helps to fight against stress. Get a good night's sleep. Stress can result in sleep difficulties, and the resulting lack of sleep makes stress worse. So sleep deprivation makes parts of the brain that handle higher order functions work less well. Having healthy sleep habits can help. This includes going to bed and waking up at the same time each day, avoiding caffeine, and creating a relaxing sleep environment. Also, get organized. Use strategies to manage your workload so you can reduce stress. For example, create a concrete list of tasks that you need to accomplish each day. This way, duties won't seem overwhelming. Make a list that gives you clear endpoints so you know when you're done. Cross it off your lists. This is going to help your brain from being bombarded. Get help if you need it. Of course, if things get really bad, seek out help. Early intervention may reduce the problems caused by stress. And then, as we mentioned earlier in this video, try to change your attitude towards stress. Try to perceive threats as challenges that you can handle. Focus on your strengths. Remember, you'll always have stress. Everybody's going to have stress. So rather than striving for no stress, strive for a healthier response to stress. You can also try meditation, mindfulness, and other relaxation techniques. Just a couple more reminders about how to deal with stress, how to help relieve constant stress. Do exercise. Physical exercise always helps. Play with a pet. Meditate. Socialize with other people. Take a nap. Listen to music. Talk things out with a good friend. And I hope you can reduce your stress. Okay, that brings us to the end of this video. I'm Bruce Hinrichs, professor of psychology. Please watch some more of my videos on my channel, Brucey. Bye-bye.